On this episode of Hands on Cars, we take a ride in an unrestored 52 Chevy, while Kevin starts blasting the old paint and rust off his Camaro before visiting a hot rod shop owned by a former NASCAR lead mechanic.
Hi, I'm Kevin Tetz, and you're watching Hands on Cars. We are on a mission, but we're also on a budget. This is Project Zed Sled, our 78 Z28 Camaro that we're doing a budget pro touring build on. Pro touring is tons of fun, twisties, straight line, good performance, but we're going to reach it affordably because we don't have a giant stack of cash to build this sucker. So one of the best ways to get to the bottom of all of the sins in the past is to do media blasting. Media blasting, when you farm it out, costs. Don't worry. We're going to show you guys how to do it at home with some reasonably priced equipment and do what you need to do without destroying your substrate. But there's some things to consider. No, we're not endorsing soft drinks, but I wanted to show you what you can accomplish with the correct media on the right substrate. The point I'm trying to make is that there's more than one material on this car. There's steel, there's fiberglass, and there's urethane. And if you choose your media correctly and your equipment, you can get there, you can do a non-destructive job, get to the bottom of things. We're using Eastwood's dual blasting system, which has two reservoirs, one for an abrasive media and one for a non-abrasive media. We're using aluminum oxide on one side and soda, not baking soda, but bicarbonate of soda, which is much more aggressive, but still doesn't profile the substrate. It's a great system because you can use one or the other or a blend of both with the valve here. Now, it's a great system, but it does require a pretty good air supply, and more importantly than a lot of air, clean, dry air. Let's check one out. You got to think about the air compressor as the heart of your shop, and it's worth spending some money on. I paint cars, I do media blasting, I run a lot of air tools, so I need a honking compressor. This Campbell Hospital commercial grade compressor gives me 25 CFM at 90 PSI. It's a two-stage cast iron pump and an 80-gallon horizontal storage tank. The important thing to remember is it's got an aftercooler, which separates the moisture before it even gets to the air supply, so it doesn't end up in my air tools, it doesn't end up in my paint guns, and it doesn't end up in my abrasive media. Think about it. Spend the money wisely, but sometimes you just got to spend it on good stuff. There's a couple of accessories you want. One is a protective hood to protect your eyes and your ears and all the other holes in your head to keep the media out of it. You want to have a pair of gloves to protect your hands from bounce back, and I like to use an old paint suit just to keep the stuff out of all my cracks and crevices. A funnel with some sort of a strainer is a great idea to keep the big chunks out of your reservoirs, and after that, it's a matter of reading the instructions and dialing the equipment in, so let's load it up. When you're choosing your abrasive media, keep in mind that sand, it's sand, and it's made from silica, and that can cause silicosis, which is a horrible lung disease. Seriously, guys, not fun. Aluminum oxide doesn't contain silica, a little more expensive. It's a way better media to use, a lot safer.
Hands on Cars is brought to you by the Eastwood Company. When you're restoring a car, truck, or motorcycle, Eastwood has everything you need to do the job right. Eastwood, since 1978.
Looks like Kevin's really going to have his hands full removing the paint and rust from the Zed Sled, but it should go quick with the Eastwood dual blaster. Now remember, there's a lot of different types of materials on that old Camaro, from the standard sheet metal, the pot metal, fiberglass, and the urethane bumpers. So we're going to get to see how the blaster and the different media types affect each of those materials. Before we see what's hiding underneath that old paint, let's check out Kevin's recent visit to Street Visions.
Hey, we're over here at Street Visions in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. Look around, we got street rods, late models, restomods, pro touring, full-on restoration, all manner of awesome custom stuff. Derek White is the owner of this shop with a 16-year tenure in NASCAR as a crew chief and an engine builder, and obviously his talents and skills bleed over into whatever he does in this shop. So let's go find Derek and give him a shout. Derek, you got some great work happening here. The Stingray's beautiful, but what caught my eye is a 55.
Couldn't get a cow induction hood for 55 Chevy, but what we did was we took a steel 55 Chevy hood and took a Z28 hood and made our own.
Yeah, it looks like a stamped piece. Another awesome detail is the smooth bumpers, or California bumpers, as I've just been educated as to what they're called. The panel gaps, the color. This is a great traditional street rod. It's not too far from stock, but it's still custom. And again, we've got beautiful custom airbrushed Bel Air emblems on the side of this car. It's an awesome street rod, but it's certainly not all they do here. There's way more to look at. Now, this is obviously a restoration, and a beautiful one at that, but the paint is not cut as flat as some of the other projects that you've got in there. Talk to me about that.
What we tried to do, Kevin, was the guy wanted it the way the car was originally painted. You know, they had peel in them.
Yeah.
So he wanted the car restored back to the way it was in '65, to have the peel in it, not to have show car
But it's
paint.
the way they came out of the factory, right? There was texture, there was drips, there was runs. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't see any drips or runs or overspray, but you've recreated what it looked like a good factory paint job in the day.
Yeah, what we tried to do is just keep the texture in it. And
Well, it's single stage, right? It's not
yeah,
paint,
this is a single stage urethane that we sprayed, and then we did wet sand and polished it, but didn't cut it as hard.
Yeah, so there's technique to that as well. And with this, you're trying to create the illusion that this is a factory original car, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit nicer than what a factory came out.
Now take a look under the hood. This is a restoration. Look at the hose clamps. The plug wires are OE. The Ford stamping on the radiator bypass hose. The stickers, everything. Everything is faithfully recreated and done in a way that it was done. It may have come off the showroom just like this, down to the Stay-Full Autolite battery. This is the kind of detail that often gets overlooked in a restoration. These guys at Street Visions did a fantastic job of this car from stem to stern all the way around. Well, thanks for showing us around. We're going to get out from under your feet and let you go back to work.
Hey, I appreciate you and Eastwood, Kevin, for coming around, and you guys are always welcome here. Doors always open.
Cool.
And guess what? We build them to drive them.
Well, I'm going to hold you to that. I want to see some tire smoke from some of these cars.
Definitely. All these cars that leave here,
Yep.
they can smoke the tires.
Awesome.
All right, thank you.
Hands on cars. We're out.
Isn't that fun?
All right, let's see what we got. We did 4 distinctly different substrates, 4 completely different materials to sandblast with 2 different types of media. The first being soda. And these gills, they're made out of hot metal, very soft, very fragile metal. Aluminum oxide would have ate it up. Soda, smooth as a baby's butt. And honestly, it kind of bounced right off of there. It didn't take very long at all. Let's move on. Now the front bumper cover, a little bit different story. This thing is in sad shape. Lots of sun damage, lots of damage from it just being exposed. This urethane isn't UV strong. And the paint, well, underneath the paint, it's pretty smooth. The soda moved it. It didn't do as great as we thought. I think it was just sort of bouncing off. So if you're gonna soda blast a urethane bumper, you better have a couple of bags of soda and a little bit of extra time on your hands, because it's just gonna take a while. Now with the fiberglass rear spoiler and quarter panel extensions, soda did great. It left the surface very, very smooth, and the paint practically flew off. Plus the added bonus is I could do this on the car. I don't have to worry about my lights, and I don't have to make stands. But I did kind of mess up, and I wanted to show you. Come in a little closer right here. You can see the surface is degraded a little bit. I mixed in some of the aluminum oxide with the soda, and it ate away the fiberglass. Surprise, surprise. I was just trying to get the job done a little bit faster, and it bit me in the butt. So now I know, only soda on the soft stuff. Finally, right here, I used 100% aluminum oxide on this surface rust, which was nasty, and is completely gone, it's completely removed, and the bonus is no warpage. So I'm fine with that. My goal was never to strip the entire vehicle with the dual blaster. It was to utilize 2 different types of media that are kind to the substrate or the surface that I'm working on and not destroy anything. So mission accomplished. We're going to strip the rest of the panels with stripping discs and be done with it, get down to the substrate, find out what sins the other 2 or 3 or 4 paint jobs are hiding. So we got to tear the car apart, throw it on a rotisserie, and start attacking those floors. And yeah, eat your Wheaties. And this is why it's a really good idea to bag your carburetor. It's like a snowstorm. They taste bad. Yuck. And by the way, if you're doing what we're doing with the car assembled, make sure your windows are done up or your sunroof is closed. Idiot.
Now that we showed you how the dual blaster handled all the different parts on the Camaro, Kevin's going to take the body off the frame and really start digging into it. If you'd like to learn more about blasting, click the link to visit eastwood.com. And remember, there's more media types than just aluminum oxide and soda. We also offer walnut shells, ground glass, and glass beads with a chart that shows you the best uses for each. Before we check in on Kevin's progress, we're going to take a ride in this old unrestored Chevy with Eastwood's own Matt Murray. You probably know Matt from our social media sites as well as Project Pilehouse. He recently found this cool old unrestored car, and we're going to check it out. So, can you see out of this mirror over here at all? I can't see anything out of this one, and I can't see yours.
No, I can't see anything. I can't even see the passenger mirror, and the driver's mirror just flops around. So,
So how long have you had this car?
I've had this thing probably about 3 months now, since the day I actually pulled it out of the garage. It's a 1952 Chevy Styleline Deluxe, and it's a 235 with a power glide in it.
So, is that what you're looking for? I mean, how do you... Was that the exhaust falling off?
No, it's the rear hits on the when you hit hard bumps. Childhood friend of mine, his father-in-law owned this car, and he gave me a call, asked me if I was interested or I knew anybody that was. Said it was a four-door, and I pretty much immediately said, nah, I'm probably not interested. But I said, hey, send me some pictures, you know, I'd like to see somebody get a hold of it. And he sent me some pictures of it, initially in the garage, all covered in dust, boxes stacked on top of it. And so I agreed to come take a look at it, and then when I went to see it and heard the whole story about the car, I kind of fell in love. And the odometer says 51,000, almost 52,000, but I bet it's probably got 150,000 on it. The guy I bought it from, his name's Paul. His grandfather bought the car brand new in '52 and drove it daily. You know, it was the family car for a few years. And then Paul's father bought it from his dad. He pretty much had it his whole entire life. So
Manatawny Stillwares, Craft Distilled, what is that? There's 2 places to buy alcohol back here?
another brewery, apparently.
Holy, I got thrown off there. What we?
I bought the car, took it home immediately. The next morning I started working on it, and I got the fire up the same with less than 24 hours of buying it. Probably the biggest thing, savior of this whole project was Eastwood's aerosol injected cleaner. I took every single hardline off the car, and because Paul's father had rust-proofed and undercoated the whole car, every hardline was still in pristine shape. So I pulled all the hard lines, the fuel lines, the brake lines, and used aerosol injected cleaner.
Clean out the inside.
Yeah, and I sprayed everything out. So I have a couple pretty good pictures on our blog, on Eastwood blog, about blowing out these lines and showing, 20-foot some brake and fuel lines, and a can of that pressurizing and pushing everything out.
Right out the other side, cleaning it out.
Yeah.
How about the interior? It looks original.
Apparently, when the car was only a handful of years old, either his mother or his grandmother stitched a new headliner for the car, door cards, sun visors.
60-year-old car, big bench seats, just a ton of history. I mean, do you know how many people probably did it? I mean, like right here where we're sitting right now.
I actually kind of joked. I joked to Paul about that because another story he told me was that him borrowing Dad's 52, picking his girlfriend up when to take her out on dates. So, we joked about who knows what could have happened on these seats, and so it's pretty neat.
So you got any plans for this car?
I did a couple of modifications, like I lowered it and put the 55 hubcaps on, and some stuff like that, just little things. Put a set of wide whites, but I kept the bias plies because I wanted to keep it kind of, again, period correct. Going through the car was like walking back in time. I got the the original dealer's repair manual. The spare tires still in there, the jack. The road flares that are in there, and so I kept all that stuff. It's kind of cool to display in the trunk.
Well, I guess thanks for giving us a ride.
Yeah, no problem.
And we should probably either head back to work, and unless you want to film in Louisa.
We could. We're not getting anywhere too quickly. So.
Now the goal of doing this is not to strip all the paint off, it's to see what kind of metal needs to be replaced. And this is telling me that I can patch this around here, but I'm gonna need a trunk floor. Kind of disappointing, but at the same time, it's good to learn it now. Trying to find a silver lining. It's a cloud of poo.
On the next episode of Hands on Cars, Kevin replaces the floor pans in a Camaro and takes Jaden to the Nashville Good Guys show before we dig up the real dirt on this Canadian rocker.